Have you ever felt like the world is upside down? When the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones causing the most harm? When leaders who should stand for justice are the very ones who twist it for their own gain? It's a frustrating and often scary reality, one that feels all too modern. But what if I told you that this exact situation was described with bone-chilling accuracy almost 2,800 years ago? This is a fiery, passionate, and shockingly relevant message that speaks directly to our world today. Imagine living in the 8th century BC. The prophet Micah is on the ground in the kingdom of Judah. It's an era of massive contrasts. On one hand, there's wealth and power. On the other, there's crushing poverty and injustice. And looming over everyone is the terrifying shadow of the Assyrian Empire, a brutal superpower that's swallowing up every nation in its path. In fact, during Micah's ministry, the northern kingdom of Israel, with its capital Samaria, was completely wiped out by Assyria. Imagine the fear in the southern kingdom of Judah. They knew they could be next. You'd think this looming threat would make everyone pull together, right? That leaders would prioritize fairness and unity to strengthen the nation. But Micah shows us the exact opposite was happening, and his primary target wasn't the foreign Assyrian army. It was the enemy within. He points his finger directly at the corrupt leaders of his own people in both Samaria and Jerusalem. Who were these leaders? First, the civil and political leaders. These were the judges, the government officials, the wealthy landowners. They were the ones with power, the ones meant to uphold the law. But instead, they were using their positions to get rich by exploiting the poor. They were seizing fields, foreclosing on homes, and perverting justice in the courts. Micah's message to them is blunt and confrontational. Listen to how chapter 3 opens here now. O heads of Jacob, and you rulers of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know justice? He's not really asking a question, is he? He's making a powerful accusation. He's saying, this is your job. Your one fundamental duty is to know and execute justice, to protect the vulnerable, and you have completely and willfully failed. It's a direct challenge to their authority and their morality. But Micah doesn't stop there. He gets graphic. In verse 2, he says, you who hate good and love evil, who strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones. Think about that imagery. Their moral compass is completely broken. They don't just tolerate evil, they love it. They don't just dislike good, they hate it. And the metaphor of stripping skin and flesh from bones is shocking. This isn't just about high taxes or unfair loans. This is about total devastation. The leaders are portrayed as predators, voraciously consuming the very lives and livelihoods of the common people, leaving them with absolutely nothing. Echoes stay my people, emphasizing that these victims belong to God, making the leaders' crimes an offense against God himself. If you thought that was intense, Micah doubles down in verse 3. He takes the metaphor even further, turning it into a gruesome culinary horror story. He says the leaders also eat the flesh of my people, flay their skin from them, break their bones, and chop them in pieces like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. This is one of the most brutal passages in all of prophetic literature. The leaders aren't just oppressing their people, they're systematically butchering and consuming them. Think about what goes into preparing a meal. It's a calculated, deliberate process. That's the point. The exploitation wasn't accidental. Eat was a cold, methodical system designed to break people down socially and economically and boil away their substance for the leader's own benefit. The people were just raw ingredients for the ruler's feast of greed. It's a powerful condemnation of systemic injustice, where the very fabric of society is destroyed by those meant to protect it. So, what happens to a society like this? What happens to leaders who act with such cruelty? Micah delivers the verdict in verse 4. He says, then they will cry to the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, because they have been evil in their deeds. This is the consequence. When the disaster they've been ignoring finally arrives, when the Assyrian army is at the gates, these same corrupt leaders will suddenly get religious. They will cry out to God for deliverance, but it will be too late. Micah's prophecy here is chilling. God will be silent. He will not hear them and will hide his face. In the ancient world, the hidden face of a king or a god meant total withdrawal of favor and protection. This isn't just God ignoring them, it's a deliberate, active judgment. Their prayers will hit a brass ceiling because their actions, their evil deeds, have severed their connection to the source of all justice. They abandoned God's people, so God will abandon them in their time of need. It's a stark reminder that our actions have spiritual consequences. But it wasn't just the political leaders who were corrupt. Micah turns his attention to the spiritual leaders, the prophets and priests. These were the people who were supposed to be the moral compass of the nation, God's voice to the people. But they had become corrupt as well. Look at verse 5. Thus says the Lord concerning the prophets who make my people stray, who chant peace while they chew with their teeth, but who prepare war against him, who puts nothing into their mouths. This is an incredible takedown of pay-for-play spirituality. These false prophets had one simple business model. If you pay them, they'll give you a good prophecy. They'll shout peace, telling you everything is fine, that God is with you, that prosperity is just around the corner. All you have to do is keep them well-fed and comfortable while they chew with their teeth. But what if you can't pay? Or what if you dare to question them? Then they prepare war against you. They prophesy doom and destruction upon you. Their spirituality wasn't from God, it was for sale. They were religious mercenaries, using their platform to get rich and silence dissent, leading God's people astray with a message tailored to the highest bidder. So what is the judgment for these prophets? Micah spells it out in verses 6 and 7. Their punishment perfectly fits their crime. He says, "The sun shall go down on the prophets, and the day shall be dark for them." Their source of income and influence, their supposed connection to God, is going to be cut off. He continues saying they will have night without vision and darkness without divination. Since they faked their connection to God for money, God will give them the real thing. Absolute silence. No visions, no dreams, no answers. Their entire careers will end in shame and public disgrace. Micah says, "The seers shall be ashamed and will cover their lips, a sign of mourning and humiliation, because there is no answer from God. Their spiritual well will run dry, and everyone will see them for the frauds they are." After this scathing critique of both political and religious leaders, you might wonder, what makes Micah any different? Is he just another angry voice in the crowd? Micah answers that question with one of the most powerful declarations in the entire Bible. In verse 8, he draws a bold, clear line in the sand between himself and the false prophets. He says, "But truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of justice and might, to declare to Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin." What a contrast. The false prophets were full of greed. Micah declares he's full of the Spirit of the Lord. Their message was peace for a price. Micah's message is justice and truth, free of charge. They were cowards who flattered the rich. Micah is full of might, the moral courage to speak truth to power, no matter how dangerous. His mission wasn't to make people feel good. It was to make them be good. His job was to hold up a mirror and declare to Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin. He was the true prophet because he spoke God's unfiltered, unpopular, and absolutely necessary truth. His authority didn't come from a paycheck. It came directly from God. And that is the heart of Micah chapter 3. It is a timeless expose of what happens when leadership, both civic and spiritual, becomes divorced from justice and truth. It is a warning against exploiting the vulnerable and a condemnation of a faith that can be bought and sold. But it's also a message of hope. In the midst of all this darkness and corruption, there stands a lone voice like Micah, empowered by God's Spirit, armed with justice, and filled with the courage to speak the truth. It's a reminder that even when systems fail and leaders fall, the truth of God endures. And it reminds us of our own responsibility to seek justice, to care for the vulnerable, and to demand integrity from our leaders. It's a challenging chapter, but its message is more important now than ever. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the powerful truths of the Bible.